Yeah,
If only, if only. So it is a weird thing, you just talk to the room, don't talk to the screen. So good morning, and just for anybody that's catching up on recap, I'm Nickala. We're here at Macc doing our Manchester Social Economy Alliance session on business planning and legal structures, and this is the business planning panel. So I'll hand over to Tom, who's going to be our chair.
Yeah.
And he'll pass things about and answer your questions as best we can. So by the way.
Yeah. Well, I think first off, I'm Tom. I'm now speaking to the camera, not the room, because you already know who I am. But yes, I'm Tom Wayne from Macc, and I'm chairing the panel for today's business planning, legal structures and business planning session. But I think first thing we introduce the panel, because we've done an introduction for George and Adrian. So I'm going to pass a laptop to yourself, George, to introduce yourself.
Just say a little bit about, I guess, who you are and what you're.
Hi everyone, I'm George Konsta. Don't try this at home. Say my name. I've been running Manchester Social Entrepreneurs since 2014, which was on the back of me finishing a university degree, research masters on social entrepreneurship in Manchester Business School. And I didn't find any communities out there discussing specifically social entrepreneurship. So I've started my own. I organized an event, and I was like, if someone comes, organize another one. And then people started coming, and then it started growing. And I was all doing that, and I'm still doing that as on a volunteering basis. I've never generated any profit. So I had to book a day off my 9 to 5 work to be here today with you, which I'm very happy about, and I'm always up for supporting people. I've been working with social enterprises, I've been working with accelerators in social entrepreneurship, supporting them, or impact ventures, if you want, supporting them to raise funding, and a number of other stuff in terms of support. I'll give you a bit more input in terms of my background when I will do my business model canvas and my approach in regards to that. I'll pass it on to Adrian. Thanks, George.
Okay, I need to address the camera first. So this is particularly for anyone who's on WhatsApp or watch again. So if you've seen any of the other Flourish Record videos, I am not Nicky Dickens. Okay, if you're expecting her, sorry, I'll fix my hair next time. Sorry. So my name's Adrian Ashton. I worked out recently that I've been working alongside community businesses, co-ops, social enterprises for 4 decades now, which makes me really old, if nothing else. I've been involved in lots of things. I have lots of stories, so stalk me online. But what I want to say at the start, today's focus is business planning and legal structures. I want to start with the confession that I'm going to be biased, because we all are. I'm going to be prejudiced, because we all are. What I'm going to share today, the stories I'll do, are based on what I've read, the experiences I've had, the groups I've worked with, the feedback from funders and all the rest, okay? That's going to be different to yours. So kind of test it as you go through. But in terms of business planning, I'm commissioned from time to time to train other sector advisors on how they can work with people like you to support you develop your plans. I've been endorsed by the Institute of Small Business and Entrepreneurship for my approach to business planning in terms of how I teach it in universities. And I've been part of panels for grants and loans where I've reviewed and scored business plans and done the due diligence part. But that doesn't mean I know everything about it. And in terms of legal structures, they kind of just to put it out there, I have no formal legal qualifications or training around legal structures. Okay. However, I have changed KIC legislation. There are lots of national sector bodies who use me as their first person to go to with any of their queries. And Pioneers Post, that you may have heard of. If you haven't, Pioneers Post, great media resource for social entrepreneurs. They do a free kind of weekly email update as well. Have asked me in the past to write several feature articles about legal structures for social enterprise and social entrepreneurs. And a theological college once asked me to do one about the implications of faith. If you profess a faith, how does that colour your approach to legal forms? And I got away with that one because there's been no thunderbolts, lightning, very, very frightening stuff to come back. Anyway, I've read so long enough, I should pass this back.
And I'll just perhaps quickly say, I guess from our side at Flourish Together, we've supported over 500 people to set up their legal structures, their governance. We do a lot of business planning support. Similar vein to Adrian, we do all sorts. We tend to chuck them into programs to make them accessible and affordable to people, but we also do one-to-one support with people as well. And yeah, we're not legal experts, but we've been working in this field that long. We've seen the pitfalls that people fall into, whether they set up and they need to change what they've become, or whether they just don't know where to start, or they need to make what they're running work better, whether that's from a business planning point of view or a governance point of view, and everything else. So yeah, looking forward to getting cracking today and seeing what comes up on the panel and from in the room as well.
Lovely. Right.
Fire away.
I'll get cracking. Right. There will be a chance for you to ask your questions, but I'm going to ask a broad one first, which I think might be very helpful, which was, who needs a business plan? That's it. Who needs a business plan? Obviously, we're in the social economy alliance, so we're talking, around social enterprise, but generally, who needs a business plan? Who wants to take that question first?
I might just start, because I'd like to ask the room if that's all right. So hands up if you have ever written a business plan, and hands up if you've got one for your organisation right now.
Can I ask a supplementary question?
Yeah.
Of those with your hands up, put your hands back up. Keep your hands up if you enjoyed the process. Right.
Yeah, I love writing business plans. That's what I do. Who needs one? It depends, doesn't it? It depends. Lots of things. I think that's why we ask the question. People can often get forced into writing business plans when they will panic about writing one, or they lose their life. They lose years of their life writing a business plan when really they should have just written on the back of an envelope and got on with it. So it depends who you are, what you're doing, what the audience is for this thing, and why you're writing it, really, from my point of view. And I've said it before on that in a minute, but any thoughts? Who needs a business plan?
Yeah, that'll be great. So my starting point is most business plans, 90% of business plans are a waste of time. My experience is most people who've written a business plan have done it because an advisor said to you, you should have a business plan. And you thought, oh, they're an advisor, they're an expert, they must know what they're talking about. But they never explained to you why. They never said, this is the best use of the next 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks of your life. And so many groups I've worked with, that's their story, and it was a waste of time, they didn't need it. My starting point, if you need a plan, number one, have you ever done anything like this before that you're about to do? This venture, this idea? If you haven't, the gremlin of doubt will be on your shoulder somewhere, whispering in your ear, it's going to fail, it's going to go wrong. So a planning process helps you quieten the doubt because it goes through logical steps. I've not missed anything. I've covered all the bases. The other thing that a business plan is useful for is for money. If you're going to ask someone else for money at some point, you will need an ambassador. And I use that word deliberately. A business plan is your ambassador to access funding. Because most of the time, you are not in the room with the people who make the decision. Your business plan is. So your plan should be in a style and format that reflects you. And that means a business plan doesn't have to be constrained to words on a page. I've worked with groups who have done plans as videos. We've done plans that have involved trays of food, runway models and fashion shows. Okay, it's your venture, your identity, your plan, if you need one, should reflect that as well.
Yeah, I will echo what Nickala and Adrian said, and I will only add that you need to map out your business model. The form of that, as Adrian suggested, can take a number of different shapes and forms. You need one if you're serious about your venture. If you're serious about pursuing that venture, the best thing you should start from is like brain dump on a piece of paper, on like drawing on walls, making a video, whatever you want. Brain dump what you have in your head. And like some of the tools that we will discuss later, the purpose is to just guide you and help you to create at least a very good starting point before you dive into, if someone requests, before you dive into writing a 5, 10, 20 pages business plan.
Or 80 plus in some cases. They're a real headache to review.
Yeah, well, that's the length, that's another conversation. But I think,
yeah, and what can put people off or what they get lost in is a big lengthy thing. And what we might come to see is, in my mind, a business plan is a series of short, sharp reports that are sandwiched together as an overall document. And so you start with the bits that you need at the time. You start with the bits that are relevant for you. And something that we've not said here is a business plan is to prove there's a need and demand for what you're doing. People can have a great idea and think it's the best thing in the world. But this is why I say write it on the back of an envelope and get started. Because if you don't go and test your thinking with your target market, your audience, your community, who knows if there's a need for what you've got. And certainly as a social venture and potential for looking at funding, that's the first thing your fund is going to want to know. Who needs this and how have you engaged with your community to know? So market intelligence and market research is just one part of the bigger picture of these things. So I'm guessing that's all right. I'm guessing Tom's got more questions for us, but he's off chasing dinner. So let's chat. Let's see what we've got. Let's see what we've got next. And we've got so the next question. Well, let's go a bit further on. It's sort of who reads these things anyway. I know we've touched on that, but who reads business plans and
I know this one. I've got the research right. So I'm always everything I base my ideas on, I try and source in evidence and research. So I'm not just making it up. There's always a track. And a few years ago, I found some research about how different people read businesses. They've gone off, they've done some surveys of bank managers, investment panels, loan panels, all the rest. And what they came back with is no one ever reads your full business plan. Okay, when you're applying for money, depending on who is reading it, they will focus on different sections first. The bank manager will look at the money section first. A commissioner will look at, and so it goes. Okay? So you're kind of writing this business plan, as Nickala says, it's a series of separate pieces that are linked together. But whoever you're submitting it to will not read it in the loving way that you prepared. Very rude.
Absolutely. From my point of view, Adrian's absolutely right there, but who reads these things anyway? You should. If you're not going to read it and your team or your volunteers aren't going to read it, don't labour over it. I write business plans people that are going to get used and get cut and pasted like you wouldn't believe into a million different places. So it'll go on your website, it'll go in your funding bids, it'll go in your pitches, it'll go in your how you trying to get permission to do things. So lots of people should be reading this thing. And what you'll find is if you've been advised to write one and you've been given some shoddy template, you've done your best to fill in the boxes, it'll sit in a drawer. So this is why we're taking the approach that we are today to show you some different tools that will hopefully make it action orientated. Any thoughts? Have you come across any other things around who reads these things?
I would say, I mean, it depends. It depends. I've always approached social enterprises as business, like proper business. Like my take on social entrepreneurship is not that it's part of non-profit or NGOs or charitable sector. It's not. That's my take. So most of the times, because social enterprises have a non-profitable approach, it's been grouped with all these ventures, which personally I agree with. And comes back to what Adrian said earlier, in terms of like we are biased. But I'm saying that I'm approaching social enterprises as businesses because my master's was on business, practically startups. I focused on social startups, and the main thing that is requested most of the times when you are presenting your business is a presentation, is a pitch deck. Now that pitch deck can take a number of different forms. There is the elevator pitch, which is what the word says. You should be able to explain your business in the time that it takes to go from from ground floor to fifth floor, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, be able to explain what it is that you do. And then there are longer versions of it, 10 minutes, 15 minutes presentations, but probably, I mean, I've never been lengthier than 15 minutes. So that is a deck of like 15, 20 slides, which is much easier to consume. I would agree with the fact that many times business plans are not fully consumed from the people that you share them with, but that shouldn't increase the value of you writing down as I said, brain dumping and going through the process of understanding and researching the proposition that you are saying, which is what the foundry and in terms of like doing your research or validating. You're doing your research as secondary research to gather the data that support why this is a needed solution. Then doing market research as in primary research, where you talk to your target audiences and you try to sense check if the solution that you are suggesting would potentially create a solution, would add value to your target audiences. And this doesn't mean would you use this, so you don't give them the solution, you try to assess the problem and you try to you try to practically identify that as you analyze the problem and you're asking about the problem, that your audience is actually discussing parts of your solution without giving them the solution. Because I can say like, hey, would you like this car? And you're going to be, oh yeah, it's a lovely car. But the moment that I'm going to say pay for this, I'm going to be like, well, actually I'm in rush or I don't have cash on me. You know, so you're not going to turn down someone just by telling if they ask you like, do you like this idea? Anyway, I'm trying you on.
No, but it's
the question. So yeah, I mean, many times it's not really read, but from the business world, most times you're requested to have a pitch deck, which is kind of like an overview summary. So you need to go through the lengthy process of writing in quite a lot of detail what you're thinking and how the business is going to be operating and the different departments, marketing, communications, customer relationships, value propositions, your key activities and the partners that you need and the resources that you need and where money are going to go out because you need resources and where money are going to come in and your revenue channels. So you need to analyze all that to be in a position to summarize and create shorter versions.
That's a good point, and it leads on to that next question I think you've got around what should be included. I think George has covered some elements there on what should be included. I guess any other thoughts on what should be included?
What should be included on the basis of the hundreds of plans I've reviewed in my life from the sector and the stuff that's always missing. What's always missing is risk. Okay, part of your creating a plan, and if you're presenting it for funding, is to reassure the funders that these are the safe pair of hands. Okay? And the way you do that is you talk a little bit about your background as a founder, as a team, but you also talk about risk and you say these are the 3, 4, 5 things that we think might happen, and if they did, it will knock the wheels off the bus. You know, we lose somebody because they fall under a bus. We can't get the investment we're banking on getting. The building that we're going to use burns down. Okay? These things never happen, never. Things like pandemics and recessions happen instead. Well, we can't predict those as easily. But the idea of that risk, that short one-page risk table shows those other people who are reading it, you have some common sense. You know how to deal with issues if things start drifting off track. You can be trusted. So something about risk is really important to put in.
And Adrian, I'm thinking that you might have done this, but one way that you look at your risk is that SWOT analysis. Understand, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Even if you've gone through the exercise of that, it will help you ascertain those risks to some degree in a simple way.
Definitely. And the other piece as well that I never see in any business plan from the sector. And this, again, this is particularly true of cooperative businesses. Okay? As a sector, we are not defined by a single legal board. As a sector, we are not defined by a single type of service. We're defined by a set of characteristics that are based on a value set. So what are your enterprise's values, your identity, and how are those manifest and protected? What makes you stand out as a social enterprise, and how do you protect that? Those are the bits of the plans that I never see included. But if I'm there on a panel, I want to know that, because how do I know you're going to drift apart? The difficulty is, just to kind of add a brief note on this. This is all sounding like these documents are getting bigger and sprawling and becoming decades of pages. They're not. Okay, a business plan. It's not about how big it is. It's about what you do with it. That applies to so many things in life, doesn't it? Anyway, George, sections of plan.
I think, definitely risks. Another way to look at risks, obviously, there are things that are simple to think, like what Andrea suggested, which, it's just a few examples. Practically, your business plan is a full set of assumptions. So you're assuming that by introducing this new proposition to the market, someone will pay you to have access to that service or product or whatever. That's an assumption. So that's a risk. So then the whole thing is a risk. That's the whole idea of like starting up a business. It's a risk attached to it. That's why you need to go through this rigorous process of like the people that are going to give you funding, they go through the rigorous process like due diligence in regards of like how do you prove your capabilities that you're the person to deliver that proposition, you're the team to deliver that proposition. So assumptions risk is definitely one, and how you plan to validate this. You should already have done some level of validation, and comes back to what we discussed before in regards of like talking to the customers, or at least identifying secondary research which discusses the problems in a marketplace and the gaps, and then you are suggesting the solution in regards of these gaps. So summarizing these, I think it's clearly defining the problem you're trying to solve and the solution that you're suggesting, and backing that with data. Either that is secondary data or that is data that you have gathered via primary research.
I'll pass that in two final bits before we get George to kick off his workshop. I think it's good to look at this like Adrian did from the point of view of what's missing. When I look at business plans, and I sit on national funding panels for all sorts of agencies, and we also run our own programs that investments in people. So we read a lot of these things. The bits that are missing for me that are specific to the social enterprise world. One is a clear, viable business model, a clear, viable plan for sustainability, and you can write reams and reams of whatever you like, and you can sit and do a SWOT analysis. But I always say in my workshops, start with the figures. Try and start with the figures. Some of us in this room will, feel inferior when it comes to accounts and financial management. I only got a C in my GCSE maths, and I can write kick-ass business plans that make sense, and the business is still running now. And so, what if anything within our networks, we can help people take the fear out of the finances. You don't have to know all this. You don't have to be the one that does it all, but you have to be able to sit with someone who can help you really get down brass tacks and some simple maths. And there are existing templates and models that take all of the pain out of it for you, to see what are some possible financial scenarios for this thing, right now, in the future, in your wildest dreams. And, start with the money is something I will always say, because it's very easy to waffle. When you get to the money, it makes it a bit clearer as to what's possible. And the other thing I would say, and we both said about sort of research, and George has put it in a context of marketplace and identifying a need and providing a solution. What I find social enterprise business plans lack, and you really need this for your funding and for investment, and particularly as you grow, for reaching communities or larger scale core sort of funding options, and even if not, especially for a bank, is really good PESTLE reports. So that's data, existing research in the main that you can go and find. You don't have to spend hours of your life doing research with your immediate community. It's good to do, and you need feedback, and you need, impact measurement and social value measurement. But there's endless pieces of research that have been done about mental health challenges, about the criminal justice system, about housing inequalities. Whatever it is you're doing, finding what the national, regional, and local policy reports say about what you're doing is so powerful in terms of demonstrating a need in a way that you'd perhaps not imagined yet, or you can't articulate, or you think, how do I know the stats? You don't have to, they've already been written down, you've just got to go and find them. So those are some top tips there.
You said best, I usually use the best mode, which is a slightly simpler version, and that means it's political. So it's something like a SWOT analysis, but of the environment of the business we're going to be operating in. So best means political, economical, societal, and technological. So these are things that are not directly related to your business. They are related to the environment of the business, as in, I'm operating in the UK, so I need to look into the legal framework. If I want to set up a social enterprise that is going to provide some healthcare support, I need to look into the legal framework and what that defines. Is the political system stable? Is there an election potentially coming up, or something coming up that's going to change it's going to potentially have some impact to the country or the political system? What is the economic environment? And then technologically, are there any technological advancements that could impact, etc., etc. So that's the best that is.
And we've got templates and all of these things, and we've done little webinars, but it's just giving you a sort of flavour and overview of elements of these things. I think.
I know, I was going to say, well, we do have a bit of time, as promised, to ask if anyone here has any questions. So coming today, anything about, business planning, because obviously we've got legal structure in the second part, but around business planning, building a business plan, writing a business plan, is it individual to you? Is it a broad question? Does anyone here have a burning question they would like to ask the panel while we've got them?
No, quite good.
Oh yeah, go.
I've got one before, so I'm a bit lost on what everything you're saying.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will explain.
And there's what we brought with us today. So George is going to talk about business model canvas. He'll talk about what that is and why it's a useful tool. But what we've also brought, particularly people who might be at slightly earlier stages, other canvases or tools that help you map these ideas down, like we've been talking about. And so I might just sort of quickly introduce these so that you've got them in the back of your mind. Basically, George, we've got copies of the tool that you can use in George's workshop in a second, but there are some other options as well to be having a think about. There's something called the 2-sentence business plan. And just like we've just been describing, this kind of summarises what we've been saying. If you can say, what's the problem? Who has the problem? How are we going to solve this problem? Why should the person who has this problem buy from you? What are the key resources you need? How will you reach the customer and so on? There's different questions. If you can answer these, 10 or 12 questions, you've got the first draft of your 5-packet business plan. So it doesn't have to be super complicated or a million reports. You can just, this gives you a sense of a picture, a sense of a way of getting your idea across. And even if you can't answer all of these questions, it doesn't matter. It helps you spot where you need to do a bit of research, or where you might need some training, or where you might need to build a team or get some volunteers to help you. So that's one example. Adrian, I don't know if you want to just mention a couple of templates that you've got at that earlier stage.
So George's session in a moment is going to introduce something called the business model canvas. The business model canvas is the granddaddy of all planning canvas tools for companies. Okay? It is the source origin. So I should tell you about it. Pass the bus.
My role.
George is going to bring you the mother box, the source origin. Okay? If this was the Avengers, it would be the new God's planet, or whatever it is in the Marvel universe. It's spawned lots of spin-offs. So some of those are planning tools in a similar format, but at different stages of your enterprise. So one is the pre-stage idea. I've got an idea. Is it worth pursuing into a full plan? How do I know if it's worth testing? Called the idea canvas. And then the other one is called the socially really lean canvas. It only has 6 prompts, but it's there to get you started. And I think this point about, you've never done a business plan before. Okay, we asked the question there, who hasn't done a business plan before? Okay, great. Hands up, keep your hands up if you're feeling slightly nervous about the prospect of doing it. It's okay, be honest, it's fine. Okay, great. Now, at some point in your lives, there have been other things that you've never done before and you're nervous. Okay? One of the earliest ones would have been when you were younger, kissing. And when you were school, all your mates were talking about it, everyone seemed to know what they were doing, and you're like, I don't know. Okay? And then you kind of realise you're getting an opportunity to have a go at this with someone. And you kind of you pucker up and whatever it is, and you fumble your way through it. And if you're lucky, the other person is saying, let's have another go. And you get feedback. And you do it more, and you enjoy it more, and you try different things. and you get better at it over time. It becomes less scary. So the trick with business planning, like kissing, is have a go. Ask for feedback, and just keep pushing it out there. The first things I ever did of some things, the first kiss I ever had as a teenager, absolutely cringe when I think about it. The first business plan I ever wrote, absolutely burn it. No one should see the light of day. It was awful. But you get better as you practice.
You said you don't want a business plan with lots of waffle. So how condensed
That's mostly done.
The most condensed one I've ever read for an investment and been successful was 3 pages. 1 page was numbers and finance, and 2 pages were bullet points.
It's like an executive summary.
There's no set rule of how lengthy it should be.
Right.
There's no like. I would say the lengthier, the worse.
Yeah.
Usually, it's not a thesis. It's not a master's thesis or bachelor's or PhD.
It's not how big it is. It's how effective you can use it.
Yes.
So where it gets beefier is if it's not an idea anymore. It is a plan and it's a working tool. So you might have a shorter business plan, but then you have like an operational plan or operational tools that you give to your staff team. So if you've been running your organisation for 5, 10, 15 years and you've got a staff team of, I don't know, 5 to 50 people, they need to know how to do their job. They need to know what it's all about, how what they do fits into the wider framework, the wider plan. But until you've been running for some time, you don't need to worry about any of that. So thinner the better. Less is more, so long as it's got the right exercise, it's got the right information. Just so people know what we've got on people's tables, there isn't one for everybody, I'm afraid. What we've got is examples of different options. But we'll worry about that later, so don't worry. It's just I might come and steal a couple of bits, just so we've got a couple of examples of each type of tools on each table, and people can sort of. What we will do after today is email you all of these, so you will get them. We just didn't. We were saving the world and saving the environment by not printing too many, but we can work through that. So. Any other burning questions before George is going to start to set up for his little mini masterclass in what is the social business model and how to use it.
Yeah.
And you're gonna support us.
Are we going to support you? I mean, there's different ways of doing that. So Macc could answer that question one way. Flourish would answer that question in we do have capacity to support some people through our programme. So what I would say is we have programmes coming up in Manchester. We are running one right now. We run something called the Time to Grow programme, and that's a social enterprise development programme. We offer a couple of days intensive support where we're funded to do so. So where we've got programmes, you can get support to do all this stuff. If you haven't got the means to pay for it, where you've got the means to pay for it, you can pay for it, or we can help you apply for Awards for All or anywhere else to tuck that money into your funding plans to buy whichever specialists and consultants and people that you need to help you do stuff, whether it's financial plans, CASL reports, stakeholder engagement work to get your market intelligence done, social value reports to say that, or anything else. So there's ways we can help people to do these things. That's kind of other colleagues here. But yeah, we do have some support coming up this year where we can help you with this. But it's about empowering you as well to do as much as you can, just so that you're not waiting on
First,
like us. Yeah.
Yes. Once you've completed a business plan and you have the individual feel satisfied, can I present it to yourself?
Lots of people do that. I don't know, Adrian.
Just to give you some feedback, what's missing if you feel that people want
I almost always say to people, I'm happy to offer a view on anything you want to send to me. If it's not as part of a funded programme, because like Nickala and George, I'm not salaried, so I always have a tension between doing the stuff that's important with being able to pay the rent. So I'm always kind of saying I'm happy to look at it, but it may take a few days or a week for me to get back to you. I will always try and offer comments constructively, and I'll say, from the view that I'm looking at this as a bank manager or a loan panel or a grant making body, this comes across well, but this is the bit that leaves me wanting. So my starting point when I say to people is when I'm looking at a plan, My starting point is always, I want to give you the money, but what about that? And this is the tricky part. If you're using it to apply for money, the people you're asking, it's not their money, it's someone else's money. So they're going to be even more critical of it.
My philosophy was, so what? You read all the stuff, and after every sentence, and my brain's, so what, so what, so what? And that normally helps kind of strengthen, so it's a similar sort of method really in terms of reviewing things. But Jen will know, because Jen's had a bit of my time looking at plans and things, haven't you?
I was going to say, a few weeks ago, our community met in the community centre, and we were talking about how to get funding. And so we put down around the room some big flip chart paper with things that you love about the community, things that you want to improve in the community, and then the challenges, and then the dreams of things that people want to do, and like, for example, events and clubs. And then we just took pictures of it.
So this is a stakeholder engagement event really to help inform your plans and your thinking, what you do. It makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. And then we put it on a Trello board, like an organisational tool, to keep it all in one place.
Yeah.
And then the council have asked for a business plan. And I said, why don't you just send that? But then they need numbers as well. They need money to know how much, for example, it's going to cost.
Exactly.
And then how much money they're making,
Yeah.
I think. But would that be okay as a kind of base?
I speak to them, and what format do they want to see this information?
Yeah.
Because that would be your starting point. You've got to put it in the format that they want. But we can talk about it, we can look at that, and that's once you've got your half the battle is the need. Once you've demonstrated need and you can show beyond reasonable doubt, the community want to need this, the rest can be worked through. So I'm just wondering how we're getting on with behaving. It's good. So
It's because it's
but I would say Jen's sent business plans and different plans across, and a number of us have reviewed it. So it is something we can do, and I think potentially as well, as we said, these events are all about research and listening where people at, what they need, and there's nothing stopping us before the summer or after the summer running a kind of catch-up day on business planning where people bring their business plans and we set up some one-to-ones and we just review them. So this is what we normally do in some of our other events and areas. We can create little one-to-ones to review things. So that's an option. Cool. Any other bits before we hand over to George shortly and get our tech ready to roll? No?
No.
Cool. Okay, I'll give you a minute to kind of gather your thoughts, and we'll just put out of the way, and then I'm going to stop recording for now. I hope that's been of interest.
Well,